Welcome to the June Q&A. Hello, everybody, and thank you for being here. Hello, Trisha.
Hello, Cynthia. It's wonderful to see you as always.
As always. All right, so what's going on? Anything new in your life?
Oh man, I got a lot going on right now. New,
Camp stuff. Camp is just kicking off right now.
yeah, just um, busy with getting that stuff. This month is every day, many tasks. We have 150 kids coming from around the world, and have to make sure we know exactly how everybody's getting there by airplane, bus, train, boat, whatever it takes.
Amazing.
That's a lot of details.
Amazing. All right, so we got a voicemail that I just heard, and I've got to play this for you. It was really very interesting, and I thought it was worth playing for everyone. So let's pull that up.
Hey, so I am not a first-time caller. I have called in before and have sang your praises. I absolutely cherish the show for the information you put out. I'm on my third pregnancy. We just found out, so I am keeping up with everything that is being talked about on the show. And I have a comment, and I want to know what your take on this is. But I listened to the episode recently with Nancy Weiner, talking about VBAC, and I am a VBAC, but I found myself really kind of hating the term, and I almost think the term perpetuates the problem. And hear me out. So, in my opinion, based on what I've heard, at least, it seems like there is the same chance for uterine rupture for someone having a VBAC as a first-time mom. But basically, it's very, very small. So why does there even need to be a term to begin with? It seems like providers then put you into this bucket of high risk, even though, like, I've hired a midwife and, they believe in physiologic birth, but there's something about having this title of VBAC that makes you tie in your C-section no matter what. Does that make sense? We're always referencing the first birth, which was a C-section, even though it was unnecessary. And it's tied into your second and third and any other birth unnecessarily, it seems like, in my opinion. So I kind of want to just do away with the term. I don't like them labeling me as VBAC, and so I'm not labeling myself as that. I kind of want your take on that. All right. Thank you, ladies, so much.
I love how she said, "Hear me out." Like we're so with her on this. We didn't even need to. We don't even need to be convinced of this. We already both have talked about on the podcast and agree. First of all, the trial of labor after cesarean is a term that we really don't agree with. But also, we relabeled VBAC a long time ago. It hasn't really caught on yet, so maybe now it will catch on.
What do we call it
Remember?
again?
A have back.
I think, okay, I don't think she would like have back any more than VBAC. Vaginal birth
Right.
after
She wants to take
cesarean.
cesarean out of
Yeah,
the
I mean, I
picture.
think she makes a very interesting point about being labeled and about having every birth of hers consistently referencing the first. I think that's a really good point. And it's not that uterine rupture is the same risk as it is for a first time mom. They are both very low, but the relative risk is a little higher for women who've already had a C-section. So they're not the same, but they're both extremely low. Not worth haunting a woman about if she's pursuing her first vaginal birth after having had a cesarean section. But I like the idea of rejecting any label. I think that's a great point. It's empowered.
Yes. I mean, this is just what happens in the medical community because we're always looking at your medical history. So that's part of your medical history that you have had a cesarean, and it is actually important information. You can't just not take it into your next birth at all because it would, if you have had a cesarean, you don't want to be induced if you're having your next labor because that does increase the risk. So it is an important consideration. You can't just wipe it off the medical record or put the memory behind you. But it is really, really important that we don't let it be the predominant factor in thinking about your next birth. It's just an important piece of information. And the risk of uterine rupture either becomes an issue of highly fear-mongering people that, your risk is so much greater. You've had a C-section, the risk of rupture is much higher. but also it can go the other way and be kind of completely disregarded. And as you said, it is not the same risk. If you have not ever had a cut into your uterus is it almost never ruptures. Not never, because it has happened, of course, but it's highly, highly unlikely. If you have had a surgery or a cut in your uterus, your risk of rupture does go up, but it is still a small risk overall. It comes out to be about 1 in 100 or 1 in 200. That's the estimate of uterine rupture for a VBAC. But that's not separating out women who were not induced or, didn't have cytotec, didn't have Pitocin, were giving birth at home. I mean, the rate of vaginal birth after cesarean at home, the success rate is extremely high compared to the success rate in the hospital. That's not talking about rupture. That's just talking about how the birth environment can really dramatically influence the birth.
Well, yeah. And she has every right to just reject the label. And even if you consider many birthing centers, if you've had a cesarean for your first birth and then you're planning that VBAC, they will say, oh, you can't have your second baby here. You need basically clearance. You have to have your second baby in hospital. I don't agree with that because I know home birth is statistically an excellent place for a woman's first vaginal birth after cesarean section. But then those birthing centers say once you have your second baby vaginally, then you have like full clearance, like any other woman, to have your third baby in the birthing center. So even that is basically conceding to this point that you like, why should this woman bear this label? It's such a good point. Everything is always referencing the first birth. She healed, she's recovered. As I always say, every cell in your body is always preparing for and anticipating a vaginal birth. So this is just, like you said, it's something the hospital has to be aware of, especially so they don't increase risk and compound the risk. But good for her for rejecting that. She shall never use that term to describe herself. Perfect. Why should she? Someone else's term.
Right. Just, I had a baby.
Had a baby.
Had a vaginal birth.
I had a baby and then I had another baby and then I had another baby. That's it.
I birthed.
I gave birth. That's right.
I don't know what else to call it.
No, we don't need a name for it.
I like her thinking. She's definitely got her mind in the right place to have a vaginal birth.
All right. Well, that was great. I love it. Love the contribution. We always say, call us for any reason, share anything, call us. We love it.
Well, yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be a perfectly written out question for a Q&A. Just call in and share your thoughts, and we love to chat about them.
But speaking of perfectly written out questions, I believe the next question is a perfectly written out question. I
don't know. We do love those.
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think it was the next question. I can't remember, but you can tell because you can't tell that they're reading. It doesn't ever feel stiff, but it just flows so nicely and it's so succinct and we don't have to like chop out long pauses or babies crying in the background or ums, and it's just lovely. It's so pleasant and easy to listen to. So no pressure, everyone. Call us no matter what if you want to call us. But it really, really goes to the top of the list when it's a good quality recording, for sure. So here's our next question. I don't even remember what it's about, but I remember thinking it was very, very easy to work with.
Hello, Cynthia and Trisha. Just wanted to first thank you because I gave birth at a birth center a couple weeks ago, and I had both of your voices in my head at multiple points during my labor, and I don't think I would have been able to do it without your guidance, so thank you. My question is about in-laws. During my pregnancy and in the weeks since having my baby, several people in my husband's family have expressed that they are excited and seemingly a little desperate to babysit my son soon. I plan to exclusively breastfeed and basically forego bottles altogether, and I'm a little worried that they won't understand my decision to do this and will be confused as to why they can't babysit like they had imagined. Do you guys have any suggestions about how to approach this subject, specifically with people who don't really understand the attachment parenting style? Thank you so much.
I mean, I feel like this is just pretty easy to just say, hey, when you're with the baby and the baby's hungry, I feed the baby, so let me know when the baby's hungry. I mean, they don't need to babysit for 8 hours. We're talking about a newborn baby. When the baby is older and she wants to leave for longer stretches of time, or they want to go out on like a couple's night or something, a baby can easily go 4 hours without eating when they're 6 months old, even if they're breastfeeding. They would prefer to probably breastfeed at the 2 hour mark, but they're perfectly fine to go longer stretches. They can tolerate that. A 3-week-old baby, a 6-week-old baby can't tolerate that. They need to feed every 1 to 3 hours. So great, come be with the baby for an hour so she can take a nice shower and maybe a nap or two, an hour or two, and then when the baby's hungry, she feeds the baby.
She didn't indicate one way or another if she wants her in-laws to babysit her baby. She didn't indicate. She didn't say, well, it would be great and I'd love the time with my husband. It would be great, but I don't know what to do because I want to only breastfeed. She didn't say that. She might be masking, and I don't think it's conscious. I think we all do this all the time. She might be masking another emotion, which might be, I don't really want to turn my baby over to them, at least not for a long time. And if that's how she's feeling, then we're having a false conversation about this whole thing because we're like, yeah, go out for a couple of hours, enjoy your time. If you feel more like you don't want to turn your baby over, and I completely understand that, and especially postpartum women with any amount of anxiety, I mean, it's a very uncomfortable thing to do. I found it uncomfortable for sure. And I did feel the pressure. I didn't want to let my in-laws down. I did feel it was a healthier thing for me to force myself to do, but it was extremely uncomfortable. And if that's how she's really feeling, then I just want to respond to that. You don't have to let anyone babysit your baby for a long while. I mean, a newborn, heck no. You've every reason in the world not to have anyone babysit a newborn for a few months. But then have them, quote, babysit the baby while you're in the house. Say, like, I'd love you to come. Like you were saying that, Trisha, like go take a nap, go have a long phone call with a friend. Just play around with your comfort level around the babysitting if you are open to it.
Yeah, I don't think babysitting a newborn is even a thing in the first 6 weeks. Like, there's really no such thing as babysitting a baby under 6 weeks of age. By the time maybe they're 3 months, maybe then you're thinking about leaving for 1 to 2, up to 3 hours at a time. And if you feel comfortable with your in-laws or your own parents being with the baby for that period of time, then again, it's easy. They don't need to worry about feeding the baby. Nobody else has to feed the baby. You're just not going to be away that long, that early. But as you said, if it's really the underlying fear is just, I need a good excuse for my in-laws not to babysit the baby, just make sure you recognize that and take a firm stance on that. It's totally okay. They're going to be able to spend time with the baby and bond with the baby and get to know the baby over a long period of time. Nobody has to know the baby that well in the first few months of their life. It's okay.
Yeah. And if you do want, if my presumption was completely off base and you really would love for your in-laws to babysit, yeah, just say like when it's time, again, a few months out, say, yeah, it'd be great if you come over. The best time would be like, you tell them what time, 9:30 in the morning or whatever. And then just say like, I'll be back in an hour and a half because he or she will need to feed again. That's it. You just control your return time. That's it.
And you control the feeding. Nobody else feeds the baby. That's easy.
So was that a breastfeeding question or an in-law question? I think
that was more of an in-law question.
I think so too.
I'd categorize that under family boundaries.
Yeah, because it wouldn't have been complicated if it were simply a breastfeeding question, right? It would not be complicated. It wouldn't be like, well, when my husband has the baby and I'm running errands kind of question. It's like, my in-laws keep saying how they can't wait to babysit the baby. Okay, that's a whole other thing.
I just want to say one more time, bonding with a child does not need to happen early on. Whether it's the dad doesn't need to feed the baby to bond in the first 6 or 8 or 12 weeks or even 6 months or a year. If you're breastfeeding, the father might never feed the baby. That is not a requirement of having a healthy relationship with your child, nor is it a requirement for the in-laws or your own parents to have a bonding experience with the child. Feeding does not equate to bonding, especially long-term.
Hi, Cynthia and Trisha. My name is Faith. I'm originally from Vermont, but I moved to California, so I loved dialing the 802 number. But my question is, as someone who's never been pregnant or given birth, what is the best way that you can describe what contractions feel like? Thank you. Bye.
Oh, what a fun question.
What a fun, creative question. I know. I was giddy when I heard that. And everyone's thinking it. Everyone who hasn't conceived yet or hasn't given birth yet is wondering. So what a
Well,
cool
they're already,
question.
the thing is, they're already labeling it as pain. So we're always focused on the pain conversation and trying to explain away the difference in childbirth pain versus the pain of an injury. But nobody's ever really asked, what does it feel like? What does it, okay, ooh, I have some thoughts. What you start?
Okay, so I was about to say, what a great question. And that said, I'm not going to tell you what they feel like. And the reason was that I'm just joking. But I also think it's presumptuous. I don't think it would be right for me to do that. I've only given birth to two babies, and the feelings were completely different in my two instances. I think it's rational to tell women that possibly the most normal or common experience is that of lower abdomen slash uterine cramps. And for some women, it's so mild that they say, oh, it's like having period cramps, but they come and go. But for me, I didn't have any of those cramps in my first birth at all. I had them in my second. And when I experienced it in my second birth, I mean, I looked calm on the outside. You were there, Trisha, but inside, I felt like escaping my body. It didn't just feel like period cramps. It was, though, like it was exactly the feeling of period cramps, but I felt like escaping my body. I had a wave of, I don't know if the word is jealousy, like why, of all the people in the room right now, my husband and you and Amy, I was like, why do I have to be me? Like, why do I have to be the one in labor? I had moments where it was incredibly intense. So, but that's still how I would describe the sensation. One more thing I'll add. With my son's birth, I felt only back labor, which I don't think was more difficult than my second birth, despite what everyone says about back labor. But they needed me to lean back on my back for a moment to check how dilated I was when I arrived at the birthing center. And I transformed into a different woman when I leaned back. I leaned back. I wasn't even having a contraction at that moment. And when I leaned back, I started begging them, please hurry. Please. I completely changed. Please, please hurry, hurry, hurry. I was panicking because I thought if one comes right now, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I mean, being on my back was completely intolerable in between contractions. So I know the sensations would have been far worse and more intense if I had been in that position. So I guess my takeaway is it's different for everyone given your body, the baby's positioning and everything, but all the conditions around your birth can also change it. One more anecdote. I have a wonderful friend from Minneapolis who was having her second baby at home. It was going so smoothly. And it must have been like 4 or 5 in the morning. And out of nowhere, after a couple of hours, her older child woke up and ran to her, calling for her. And she was overcome with so much like feeling torn and guilt. She said her contractions immediately became painful. She immediately doubled over. She immediately had to change her coping techniques. And it took them a little while to calm down her child and put her child back to bed, her daughter. And she said she got right back into that calm state and was comfortable again.
That reminds me of what happens when you have, say, a headache. You know, a headache can wax and wane, and it can get a lot worse really quickly when you get stressed, panicked, tense. You can, and then it can go away when you take deep breaths, close your eyes, put a cold washcloth over your forehead, do things to relax. It can like completely dramatically change the experience of what you're feeling in your body. So what you just described with this mother reminds me a lot of, how you can experience that kind of discomfort. So for me, all of my labors felt pretty similar, except that the faster ones, which were the second two, versus the longer one, which is the first one, the intensity of each individual contraction was much higher in the short labors than it was in the long labor, but the long labor contractions were also still very intense and just wore me down a lot more over time. It was more of a feeling of like, I don't know how many more of these I can take. Whereas in the short labor, it was just like, oh my God, I just got to get through this one and I'm almost there.
So which was easier and which was harder? That kind of describes my two experiences too, even though both of my births were so short. But which one would you say is harder? Shorter and more? They do say this, that the shorter the labor, the more intense, and the longer and slower, the more exhausting, and I think emotionally and mentally demoralizing. But which was harder, would you say?
I would not describe it at all as demoralizing, but I would definitely say hands down, without even a fraction of consideration for anything else, the first birth, way harder, way harder.
Which was the longer, slower one?
The longer, slower one, yes. About, it was about 36 hours, whereas my second and third were 3 hours and 90 minutes. But the inside of each single contraction was completely overwhelming, like completely just like gripping to get through, gripping to just, I don't know how to describe it other than it felt like beyond a menstrual cramp. My first labor, those felt like really, really intense menstrual cramps, the most intense menstrual cramp you have ever had. And then second and third was a step above that.
Now, can you understand how if women have really long labors, especially in a hospital, that it can be demoralizing in a sense? Like we've met with enough women in birth story processing sessions where I hate that it happens, but they start to question, like, why is this still going on? Why is this taking so long? There's pressure that they're facing. It does seem to present a new set of challenges.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with how the people on the outside are relaying your experience to you. I mean, in my case, a 36-hour labor, it just felt completely normal. Everybody around me thought it was normal. I expected it to be long.
That is long.
Wasn't, yeah, I don't know that I was even thinking, I wasn't in the moment thinking that it was that long, though. I was just
you weren't analyzing it, and no one was
No.
pressuring you, and no one was saying, look, you've been this many centimeters for this many hours, right?
Nobody ever said anything like that to me, nor did I have a clock. I wasn't even looking at a clock. I didn't know. I only knew that I had started labor the day before in the afternoon and that we were approaching nighttime and that had to be kind of like, wow, this is going on a long time. But at the same time, I knew it was always progressing. I knew it was progressing not because I was getting cervical exams, but because I felt things changing in the course of the labor.
The only thing I want to add to this question is something that before I gave birth and I was taking my childbirth class, I remember saying, how long does a contraction last? Which is a very silly question, and women do wonder this sort of thing. And I fully expected my instructor to say, 5 to 10 seconds. And instead she tilted her head and said, 45 to 60 seconds. And I think I white knuckled the arms of the chair and said, what? Because I thought, how am I going to endure anything difficult for that long? And what she didn't explain that is so important to explain is that I would, if I didn't hear anything or know anything and you asked me how long they last, I think I would still say 5 to 10 seconds. And not just because of time distortion, because I think what we forget is that they start very mild. You feel it arriving. You feel the sensation arriving. You feel it mounting. You might be finishing your sentence if you were talking. You might be finishing your sips of water if you were drinking. And then you just relax into it, do your thing, whatever you're doing, focus, relax, check out. And it's that peak. You feel it mounting, mounting, mounting. You feel it reaching some kind of crescendo. You know you're reaching the peak, and then it starts to wane. And the whole peak on the left and right side of the peak, I remember being difficult. Like even after I reached the peak, it was still difficult for a few more seconds. And then it gets easier again and it slowly goes out. So all we really have to concern ourselves with is being at our calmest and breathing our most comfortably and at our deepest in that peak. Like in the most difficult moment, you be your calmest with the maximum comfortable amount of oxygen in your system. And that's it. And you kind of don't worry about the rest.
Yes. And that peak sensation, I think, is different for a lot of people. If it is all uterine, I think it is most commonly described as a super, super intense menstrual cramp. It can sometimes feel like a maximal stretching of your tissue, like stretching almost to the point where it shouldn't stretch anymore. What you said is so important. Nearly every woman will experience her uterine contraction in that wave-like fashion. And how long the peak lasts is different for a different woman. And the build-up time is different and the coming down time is different. And they do range from 30 seconds all the way up to 2 minutes per contraction. That's generally the range. But that peak is usually only about like 15 to 20 seconds. And as long as you know that it's coming, 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 coming. You're going to hit that peak and then it comes down the other side. It always comes down the other side. I think what's really difficult is when women experience sensations outside the uterus, because these are harder to navigate. Like the pain, some women will feel a lot of sensation or what they describe as pain down their legs, in their thighs, in their back. If there is something that's going on in your body that's kind of like pulling and you need to change positions or your baby needs to move positions, you're going to feel a sensation that feels different from that wave. And that can be a little bit harder to cope with because it doesn't have that same pattern.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. In my first labor, I only felt back labor. And again, if I could redo either, I think I would redo my first one with the back labor because someone can apply counter pressure as my husband did, like rubbing the back. It's so much reprieve. And I truly remember feeling absolutely positively nothing in the uterus at all. So the back labor with that support was really manageable. But it's interesting. I forgot we can feel other things. And when you said outside the uterus, I couldn't even imagine what you meant. But in my second labor, my sacrum lifted very quickly as the baby was descending. And my husband witnessed it. And he was like, oh my gosh, like, Amy, come and look at this. And she was like, isn't that so cool? While my sacrum lifted right before his eyes, I felt this very intense ache go down my femurs because the femurs penetrate the pelvis, I guess. But wow, that was unexpected. And I was like, ooh, 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 whatever was happening. I was like, ooh. And it was just a few seconds, but it was just.
And also, it's hard because all of a sudden we've gotten used to coping with a certain rhythm of sensation in the body. And then your body throws this other sensation at you. And you're like, wait, that's not supposed to happen. What is that? How do I manage that?
Right.
But without a doubt, whenever any of these sensations come up and you feel you're at your limit of what you can tolerate. One, that's a good sign that your labor is progressing well. So remember that. And two, use water. Just like if you can get in a tub, get in a tub. If you can't get in a tub, get in a shower. Water just has an unbelievable way of softening things. Not taking it away. It is not like an epidural, but it softens, it tempers things.
That was a great question. If we have any more preconception women or women who are expecting their first, it would be fun to hear the things on their mind and the questions they have, because you and I wouldn't have thought to address that if we hadn't been asked. And it's a tough one to answer, isn't it? We're all over the board. I don't know what she got out of that conversation, but we're all over the place. Hopefully she has some sense.
Well, you know what? We should ask the question of our community. Let's have other people describe
Good idea. That's
what
fun.
it feels like to them.
I like that. But one thing that I've said for years in teaching childbirth education classes is that I want you to, it's okay to ask and be curious. But when you're pregnant and expecting, focus less on what you anticipate feeling and focus entirely on how you will respond to whatever you feel. And I think there's no better preparation for that than a yoga class where you're intentionally putting your body into safe but purposefully uncomfortable positions just with the weight of your own body for the sole purpose of a deep breath and a calm physiology and a relaxed face. I mean, that is powerful. And you take that into every aspect of your life. So I think that's the perfect way to prepare for birth. Okay, let's go on to our next one.
Hi there, my name's Audrey. I am 38 weeks pregnant. I am planning a home birth with a midwife. I'm planning to do a water birth. My midwife at my last appointment recommended that I do an ultrasound to do BPP testing on the baby. I was hesitant to do it because I wasn't planning to do another ultrasound, and it surprised me, but she said just as a baseline in case you go way over and we need to do another ultrasound, we can have something to compare it to just to show that you're still doing well. And so I agreed. They had me go to a place called High Risk Pregnancy of Arizona, which I was hesitant to go to. And the doctor there, I just did an ultrasound with a tech, but the doctor after contacted my midwife and said that he had a concern about the size of my baby because his abdomen was measuring big. And they estimated that he might weigh about 8.7 pounds at this point. So my question is, how accurate are those tests? How much of this is just overly cautious doctor who sees a lot of high-risk patients? they're suggesting that I do glucose testing and a finger prick 4 times a day to see what my glucose levels are. I have no concern that my baby's too big. My husband had 3 kids before this baby, and he has kind of a history of big babies, but nothing crazy, and all 3 of his were delivered at home, and I feel very confident that my baby is the size that he should be for my body. So how seriously do I take this? How much of it is just doctors being doctors? And should I have just gone with my gut and not intervened and done an ultrasound at this stage of pregnancy at all? Because I feel like that's an intervention, and now they want to do more interventions. So I'm just kicking myself a little bit and would love your advice on it. Thank you.
She opened that can of worms at the advice of her midwife. That's what happens.
She just explained exactly the problem with routine ultrasounds in the 3rd trimester. So yes, she should have trusted her gut and declined. There was no evidence that she needed a ultrasound. She feels good. She trusts that her baby is the right size for her. She's not worried. There were no indications about anything in her pregnancy that would require an ultrasound. And now there is unnecessary intervention and unnecessary worry.
This big abdomen thing makes me crazy. Like, they think they have a little sumo wrestler in there or something? That, like, she has this disproportion. This is so ridiculous. I mean, ultrasound is so it's so faulty to begin with as far as guessing fetal weight, the baby's weight, especially late in pregnancy. But the abdomen, I mean, what baby is getting stuck at the abdomen? They're soft. They come out because they're soft.
It's not that they're worried about a large abdomen.
They think the baby
the abdomen is an indication of the baby's overall weight and size, but these ultrasounds are off by easily a pound or more.
Well, they already measured the weight, and it isn't a good correlation to shoulder dystocia. And look at what they want to do. They now want to have her testing her glucose all day long. For what? Only so they can say, oh, good, now we have a reason to induce you. And they've done meta-analysis on this. We've talked about this. And a care provider's suspicion of a big baby is far more dangerous with significantly worse outcomes than actually giving birth to a big baby. So that is a very important takeaway. And again, that's meta-analysis. This is putting together all the studies from all the different continents. That is a very clear thing. I think the adverse outcome rate was quadruple in the case where a care provider suspected a big baby. And cesarean rates were far higher. Induction rates were far higher. So you need to really protect yourself from unnecessary checking and unnecessary interventions. Now, that's not to say she did the wrong thing. She did what a lot of us would do. She trusts her midwife. Her midwife said, let's just make sure everything's okay. But again, she marched her into the hands of a high-risk doctor who is going to find either low fluid or big baby or something.
Well, this is the classic trap in the end of pregnancy. Let's just get a baseline. Let's just make sure everything is okay. If there's no indication, if there's no true indication for an ultrasound, you don't need one. I can't remember how many weeks she said she was.
38. I think 38, she said 38.
Right. So we're not even talking about, post dates or anything at this point. She's just 38 weeks pregnant, feeling fine and having a healthy pregnancy. There's no need for an ultrasound.
What I liked hearing is she herself isn't worried about a big baby, as I never was. I mean, it's very good to not be afraid to have a big baby. It's a great thing, and she's comfortable with it. The only thing to hope and pray for and work for and try to influence is a well-positioned baby, because that's actually what's going to determine how smoothly any birth goes, more than the baby's weight.
Yes, your baby's head position is the most important thing.
All right, Trisha, we turn it over to you now because it's quickie time.
Oh, my favorite time, as we know. Okay. So these all started coming in this morning, and as per usual, we've got a lot of them. So let's just start at the top, and here we go. Ooh, okay, that's a personal one right off the bat, and it's a big one, so we're not actually going to start with that one. We're going to hold that one till the end.
I'm nervous now.
Yeah.
All right. I love how we always get a personal one, and we always put it at the end. But it's so reliable. I'm always afraid, like,
yes, it's become reliable.
Good.
It wasn't at first. It took a little while.
Yeah.
But now there's several personal ones in here. So
great.
Okay. What do you do for a cervical lip, if anything? Nothing. You don't have to do anything. A cervical lip is a normal part of labor progress.
So
Can
we
be.
just had a birth story processing session, you and I, and in that story that she shared with us, her midwife reached in, it was very uncomfortable, and like moved the lip out of the way. What
Yes.
happens if it's not moved out of the way? It just works its way. The baby just pushes through it.
Eventually, yes, I had one in my first labor that lasted, gosh, probably an hour before it finally went away. Um, I have heard of people, midwives using ice to try to
Oh,
put ice on it to get it to kind of
what? Come on.
retreat. It's just cervical tip. It's basically being like 9.5 instead of 10. You
Oh,
just
come
have
on.
this one last little bit of cervix that's hanging on. And it usually has to do with the baby putting slightly asymmetrical pressure on the cervix. Anyway,
Okay.
now here we go, not being quickie right off the bat. We're not being quick. But you don't have to do anything, is the point. Why do I have high lipase milk? My baby won't take it frozen. I can't tell you exactly why you have it, but many women have it. And many babies don't take it frozen because it does actually change the flavor of the milk. So there is a technique to scald the milk before you freeze it that deactivates the enzyme. You can look it up online if you want to do this. But you know what? Nature didn't design us to be storing and freezing a lot of milk and feed it to our babies later. So that's one solution. My baby prefers a binky to sleep instead of nursing. Should I worry? No, that's a habit that babies can develop as long as your milk supply is keeping up and your baby's gaining weight. Well, then no. I mean, it's not a great habit, but a lot of babies have it. I prefer a thumb to a binky,
That might be a much harder habit to break later, a thumb.
but they can break it on their own. You have to take away the binky.
I know that was exactly why I thought the thumb would be a harder habit to break. I don't know. I never had a child who did either. So I have no experience and I have no understanding of what. Okay, go on.
I think children
I can
actually
see.
will break the thumb sucking easier than you taking something away from them. That's just my personal opinion and
Okay.
experience. Can you drink coffee while pregnant? Yes or no?
I would assume organic decaf is probably fine. I'm in moderation.
I think even small amounts of caffeine are okay. 1 cup a day, but if you can give it up, give it up. It's better not to.
Yeah.
But a lot of women don't even crave it in pregnancy. That just doesn't even
Yeah.
taste good. They can't drink it.
Yep. I know. I've heard of that.
But don't beat yourself up if you have a little coffee. The fresh test or a glucola? Neither. But definitely not glucola. What's a milk bleb? I'm not currently nursing, but do I need to worry about it with my new baby? No, you don't need to worry about it. And a milk bleb is a inflammatory process in the nipple where you get a block in the nipple pore from inflammation in the nipple duct.
Leb, you and your make-believe words.
That is a real word. Did you have to look it up?
No, I would have to. Yeah, I didn't know that word.
Bleb?
I didn't look it up, but I didn't know what it was. No. Is
That's
that
a real
used in
word.
other contexts outside of breasts? Bleb?
I don't know, but it's definitely
I
a
mean,
word.
I know blurb, I know blob. I don't know bleb.
A bleb.
Oh, yeah, no, I never heard of bleb. It's never come up in all my conversations.
All right. Let's look it up.
Really?
Yeah, let's
Gotta watch
find
the
out what the
time
actual
here.
definition is.
Right.
It's a medical term. A bleb is a small blister-like protrusion or vesicle filled with fluid that forms on the surface of a tissue. Except interesting because a bleb is not actually a vesicle filled with fluid. That sounds more like a blister. That's not what a bleb is.
A bleb versus a blister.
They're actually different things, but used seemingly interchangeably in when people are calling it a milk bleb. It's actually not
Okay.
fluid filled. Okay. Moving on. Is it bad to stay on antidepressants for many years?
You're asking the wrong people.
There are better things.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to learn about this, listen to episode 235, and you'll probably want to get yourself off of them if you listen to that episode, which is outstanding.
I think
Dr. Roger McFillin, he's doing the research and sharing what all the knowledge the pharmaceuticals have that they suppress from the public.
Yeah, I don't think we can give you a yes or no on that, but we can say that there are alternatives.
And you might be much happier off of them. That's what I think women are afraid to come off of them because they think they're going to hit a low. And if someone supports you in responsibly weaning off of those, you might actually be much, much happier, ironically. So, we listen to that episode 235 and then you can take your research from there.
Definitely not a quickie.
Nope. That's why I said listen to that episode. turn it over to an episode.
Thoughts on swaddling and wake windows?
Oh, no.
No and no. Very judicious use of swaddling, I think, is okay. But wake windows are something I think we need to just not worry about or think about really ever.
It's a new thing that didn't exist before to give moms anxiety over.
Well, trying to create and follow wake windows precisely is something to feel anxious about. Children, babies naturally have wake windows. It's just a natural thing that occurs. They wake up and they have wakeful periods in the day. But trying to analyze them and track them and control them, don't
is
agree.
A recipe for tremendous anxiety.
Yes, and breastfeeding disruption.
And it'll change how you relate to your baby, which we don't want.
Dates or sex to dilate your cervix?
I thought she meant dinner dates. I was like, well, first one, then the other. Come on.
Which one first? Sex and then the date, or date and then the sex?
She means eating dates. They're all good. Eat dates. They're great for dilating the cervix. She left evening primrose oil off the list, which she should definitely add on the list. And if your membranes haven't released and you have sex, that's a cervical ripener.
They both help soften and prepare the cervix. They don't actually necessarily lead to dilation, but they soften and ripen it, which is important. Oh, here we go. A follow-up. Is sex at 37 weeks really going to put me into labor? No, it's not going to put you into labor. It's going to prep your cervix for labor, which will help you progress faster in labor when labor kicks in. Now, maybe a good orgasm can tip you over the edge.
It has to be a good one.
Has to be a good one. Well, there are such things as good, better, best. I don't think there's such thing as a bad orgasm.
So we're talking duration, intensity equals better.
Yeah, yeah, they're different sometimes.
So to answer your first question, yes, definitely start with the dinner date.
I mean, I prefer the sex than the date.
Really?
Kidding.
Oh. I think the anticipation is a good thing. Okay.
Can you avoid a retained placenta? Well, there's no guarantee, no, but you can do some things to reduce the chances of having a retained placenta, like not cutting the cord and separating your baby from you after birth.
Like not letting them tug on the cord, like not letting them put their hand inside of you and scoop it out unnecessarily, or excessively palpating on the uterus, which they dare to call uterine massage.
You can best avoid it by leaving it alone.
Leave it alone. Keep the cord intact. Breastfeed your baby and allow.
When do you think induction is necessary?
Nice quickie. When there's a medical indication that's greater than the risk of induction. And in your conversations with providers, they're seldom going to talk about the risk of induction.
I would say about 10% of the time that it's actually done. That'd be my guess.
They actually found in a study, I believe it was in 2007, that 97% of the time Pitocin has been administered in the United States. It was administered off-label, which means to speed up or augment labor or for non-medical induction. So I think you're being generous. I think it's even less. But yeah, you'll know if you have a serious condition, you would know. By default, you don't go near inducing unless you're thinking, oh my gosh, I need to get this baby out, like preeclampsia, something like that. And again, we can't name everything because autoimmune disorders, like there are conditions women can have that would predispose them to very risky situations. We can't cover all of that.
We actually did we do a Patreon on this? We do have an event on this where we walked through the reasons for an induction, why you would get induced. Moving on. Creatine while breastfeeding. Yeah, creatine is it's just an amino acid. Mm-hmm. It's just, of course, it's fine. It's food. Mm-hmm. It's an amino acid that you get from food, just in a more consolidated, simplified version. So yes, totally fine.
Okay.
We actually got several personal ones this time, so maybe we'll do a couple. Let's see.
That's good in case one of them stumps me.
Okay. And there's a whole bunch more quickies in here that we'll have to save for another time.
Well, last time we took them over to Patreon and did a whole Patreon event on quickies only. And if anyone wants to go over to Patreon, they can watch our last quickies event where we just did a whole hour-long quickies.
Yes, and we'll do that again with some of these. We'll do it again soon, real soon.
If you can't get enough of quickies with Cynthia and Trisha,
we love our quickies.
We got you covered.
Okay, so moving on to personal. What's your favorite on-the-go coffee? Dunkin', Starbucks, etc.
I've never had a coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. I don't drink coffee from Starbucks. Um, but the best one on the go from whatever cafe of choice I'm going to would be an iced latte. And yours is a
From
hot,
anywhere.
yours is a hot, well, it has to be good. It has to be good. I don't go to Starbucks because I think I haven't had their coffee in 20 years, but that's my treat, an iced latte. You have a hot coffee.
What if you're on the road
Yeah.
and you don't have a good local Westport cafe to get a nice latte? Where are you going?
I wouldn't drink a coffee. I mean, I don't
just
drink,
not drink.
I can go a long time without coffee. Yeah. I don't drink, I drink coffee as a treat. But when we like on vacation or something, like when we were, if we're in a city, that would be like my daily thing. Find a nice little cafe and get a nice latte. There are like 2 weeks of the year in the Northeast that are too cold for me to get an iced latte, and I will convert it to hot. And then 2-3 weeks later, I'm back to iced. I love my iced latte. It's always, we were out the other day, it was freaking hot, and you got a hot coffee.
It was 87 degrees and I got a hot coffee.
We were in open air.
I just like the flavor of coffee hot.
Yeah.
Oh, my favorite on the go coffee is definitely hands down Tim Hortons.
Okay. Never heard of him. Never heard of him.
You've never heard of Tim Horton?
No, he sounds like a country musician you would listen to.
No, that's like not having heard of McDonald's. Ronald McDonald.
No, it's not like not having heard.
It is.
No, because when I was a kid, there were McDonald's commercials on TV all the time, not Tim Horton commercials. You can't say that.
Tim Hortons is the Dunkin' Donuts of Canada.
Oh,
and
nice.
many other parts of the world.
You're giving me your old. You never heard of it? It's only the biggest coffee maker in Canada.
I mean, they do exist in the States.
You never heard?
Okay, but I think most people have heard of Tim Hortons.
We have to find out there.
We will find out, but yeah, their coffee's decent. Actually, it's pretty tasty.
All that shaming of me over a brand that you only describe as decent. Unbelievable.
This is on the go coffee.
Unbelievable.
The best on the go coffee is my own coffee in my ceramic white mug, open in the car.
Okay.
That's always the best coffee.
Next personal question.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah. And last one.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope so.
Do you regret not having more kids?
No, not at all. I had exactly the number that I wanted to have. I mean, I can't say if you asked me at the age of 28 what I would have said. I think I would have said 3, but starting as soon as Alex was born, I did exactly what felt right to me, and it has felt right ever since. Now you have a different answer. You always
not regret. No,
4, not a regret.
No, I always kind of actually wanted 5.
Okay.
But I was very happy when I was finished with 3. I felt very finished. But had I had 4, I mean, I always crave a baby.
Oh, okay. Always.
So I wouldn't say considered really, but I always crave a baby.
Yeah, I could see that in you.
Not a 3-year-old.
Really? Okay. I found the age of 3 easier than infant, probably.
Oh, I just love infants.
Well, when you can talk to them, it's just so awesome.
I love toddlers too. I love them at all. I love them at all ages. But I could just have a baby in my life, I think, at all times. Mm-hmm. Okay, that wasn't as hard as I thought.
No.
That's it then. That's a wrap for the June Q&A. If you're interested in that induction conversation about when you really need to be induced, you can find it in the show notes. Go check it out. Wherever it is, we'll find out.
Thank you for the questions, everyone. Have a good one. We'll see you next Wednesday.